Hello and welcome to another episode of the Grow Show. My name is Mark. I'm your host. And today I'm speaking with Adam Seim at Urban Exteriors in Brooklyn, New York. Adam, thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear from your words, just what services you provide for your customers.
Yeah, so we are basically like a full service backyard renovation company. So I'm not sure how familiar you are or other people are with the Brooklyn and New York City market, but New York City is a really old, it's one of the older developments in America. Lots of the majority of buildings I work in are in downtown Brooklyn, and they're buildings that were built in the late 1800s. So they're 150-year-old buildings. They never had decks. They're very, these are basically row houses. Where they're long, skinny row houses with like long, skinny backyards, and to even have a backyard space, most of the houses are multi-million-dollar homes just because real estate's so pricey here. So most people's backyards are really the size of somebody in the suburbs' large living room. The vast majority of the backyards I work in are only 20 foot by 40 to 50 foot.
No
but
kidding.
They're in the back of, there's also no alleys in Brooklyn. So all the townhouses are built side by side. So the only way to get to these backyards is through the client's homes and through their really fancy living room or their fancy kitchen. Sometimes they'll rent out their downstairs. And so we have to go through the upstairs, through their kitchen, down their deck, into the backyard. There's a lot of moving stuff. There's a lot of logistics. And I actually got my start in carpentry building radios and recording studios. So, I'm kind of familiar with the, working with, using Festool dust collection, working with, making sure everything has dust collection, making sure you keep a tidy work site. I put up zip walls and floor protection. So basically I'm as much of a service company as a contractor, because I have to get into people's houses and do all this, dirty work in their backyard and then move through their house to, get back to move all the material. So it's kind of an interesting little niche I've found. It's also, it's harder to grow because, you can only fit so many people in these backyards at one time. There's other crews that have like 4 or 5 guys. There are times too, like where I'll collaborate with other people. But really, though, it's like you can't really have more than 6 guys on a crew working in a tiny backyard like that.
Wow, amazing.
So, but I have a background in carpentry, and then I don't know, maybe my dad always welded. My dad's a welder, so I grew up around metalworking, and so now I've taken on a lot more metalworking projects and masonry projects. So basically, in backyards, we no longer do just woodworking. We do a lot of metalwork. We'll do we build metal frame decks with Ipe. We do a lot of concrete curbs and retaining walls and pads and stuff. So basically, like at this point now in my career, I'm a full service backyard general contractor, essentially.
Wow, that's amazing. And so you do not work inside the home?
Oh, I mean, I don't have, I will in the winter. I make a lot of, so part of my business too is just being very customer service oriented and very detail oriented. I barely even advertise. Most of my work comes from word of mouth. So I'm just very detail oriented and very hands on with the customer. And so I become a lot of people's favorite contractor. And so in the winter, I got a whole list of winter work basically from previous clients. So I'll meet people by working in their backyards, and I prefer to work outside. And so there's always enough work to keep me through the winter, spring, early spring season with interior projects from my exterior clients. Because I have a background in millwork and cabinetry and stuff. So there's always people who need built-ins and need different, homeowners always have lots of projects.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do to stay busy through the winter, is interior work.
Do you guys have your own fabrication equipment for metal?
Yeah, I have a shop. I have a shop in the neighborhood, but the vast majority of the work I can do on site. So I'm mainly a site carpenter and a site builder. I have a portable welder, portable metal saw, oxy torches, most of it's portable, but I do weld into my shop sometimes. Like if I have to make up a bunch of frames or brackets, I'll make all those in my shop and then bring them on site. But a lot of the stuff like we do, my favorite way to build a fence is actually with a welded steel frame. I'll use metal posts, metal C-channel posts, metal C-channel for the top, and then I'll add wood onto that. And it's just so much better than using 4x4s. Just also,
That's amazing. I've been wondering about that, Adam. I mean, does steel work, is it comparable to working with wood in terms of cost? I mean, it's a big question, maybe a lot of facets to that, but I mean, it's interesting you're building decks with like steel frames. I mean, I love that. And it can be so efficient. I mean, especially, obviously if you have the steel working tools. I mean, I've heard that's a great business model, fabrication, because in many cases you are doing things off-site and just manufacturing them off-site and bringing them. That's just got a huge kind of advantage there. Yeah, how much kind of metal work are you guys doing, and is that like a really kind of, I don't know, lucrative part of your services do you offer?
I think, well, it's the integration, because as a, I don't know, I mean, I heard this a long time, like my shop teacher taught me this growing up, that basically, like, if you could learn construction as a finished carpenter, every other trade is kind of open to you. Because first of all, you have to be able to fix everybody else's mistakes, and you have to work kind of to one of the highest level as far as fit and finish. And so it's like, I mean, the problem is the finished carpenter isn't able to do it. It's able to do it efficiently. So like I can build almost anything, but sometimes like watching like a rough framer just knock something together in a day, it's like, holy shit. Like I can do rough framing, and I can do perfect rough framing, but it's always like, I always learn, like my brothers are framers. And like, it's fun. It's actually good to work with them because they show me all the, like, it's not that it's cutting corners. It's that you're a business to make money, and it's all covered by drywall, and the finished carpenter will deal with it.
Oh, interesting. Right. Okay.
So, there's a lot, like, so basically having a background in cabinetry, millwork, finished carpentry, my metalworking is very accurate and very crisp, and like I know how to control for a lot of things. So I can do really high end metalwork and then make it match up to the wood. So basically, Ipe, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Ipe, like Ipe decking.
Sure.
Ipe decking has a service life of like 30 years or 40 years without even ever treating it. But if you build Ipe on a pressure treated frame, which lots of people do, it's really wasteful. I've been to demo lots of stuff where the Ipe was still good, but everything that was holding it up went to shit.
Oh, no kidding. Just pressure treated, it's got like a 10-year life or whatever.
Yeah. So, and I see it all the time where people build stuff with pressure treated framing, but they use Ipe, which is, a very precious, valuable rainforest material. And it's one of those things where it's sustained. If you can actually make it have a 30-year service life, then it's a very sustainable choice. But if you're gonna use this rainforest, this really durable rainforest wood, and then put it on a poor foundation and it gets ripped out in 10 years, that's not very sustainable, or, I don't think that's a good practice. So, I've really moved over to almost anytime I'm using Ipe, I'm putting it on a steel frame or on steel substrates, just because it's gonna, the frame will in that case outlast the wood versus, the wood outlasting the frame, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So Adam, I mean, working in Brooklyn, and I mean, in this area you work, beautiful, incredible part of the country, and inevitably, high end, glorious houses at different levels. How it's working with that clientele that's, at a higher level, more fluent. How does that allow you to have some discretion around projects, with like materials and things? I mean, does sort of finding yourself in that type of market allow you to have I don't know, kind of a more exciting and more interesting business, because just what the clientele is going to be wanting are, I don't know, more interesting projects and using higher end materials. Have you found that?
Yeah. I mean, we just finished yesterday. We did a rosin stone, rosin bound stone. It's basically like pea gravel, and then you mix it up with rosin, and then you put it down as a permeable floor covering, or permeable patio surface.
Okay.
So we put down 6 inches of drainage rock, and then we put down filter fabric, 6 inches of drainage rock, more filter fabric, and then 1.5 inches of this rosin bound stone. I don't know if I can share pictures here, but so that was an interesting process. So it's like the vendor came in, like the rosin kind of came with the guy who would help you mix it. Like we had to pay him for the day, and he brought the mixture. But we had to move the rosin and put it in place and trowel it down. And that was a really interesting project because it's a lot of technology and a lot of chemistry to get it right. And then when it's down, all of a sudden now it almost looks like a giant Rice Krispie treat. But it's a that was an interesting thing. We just did that yesterday. This rosin stone did that for the first time. Yeah, there's lots of sometimes I think what frustrates me sometimes though is the outdoor space is especially in New York City. We're here. We have really hard winters and hard summers and lots of rain. We actually get more rain than Seattle. We get more inches of rain than Seattle, but we have less rain.
No kidding. Wow.
So yeah, we actually get more rain than Seattle, but Seattle has more rainy days.
Right. Okay.
Plus with all the pollution, the exhaust, everything outside just gets dirty really quick. Everything gets dirty and grimy because it's like hot and humid, plus all the exhaust and smog. So the outdoor environment here is a real challenge. So then we have like long, cold, wet winters. And if you don't build things right, it rots very quickly. I also find we're a rural hub for immigration, and there's a lot of people who come in who have worked all over the world in like better climates. And I always see it. I can always tell when like guys who have really kind of worked more in like a warmer tropical climate or like a desert climate, they'll build something in Brooklyn, and it's just like, and you can just see it that it's really not. It's not built to handle the frost. It's not built to handle the rain and the mildew, and it's not a sustainable. I use the word sustainable a lot, but to me that's an important thing.
Yeah.
It's not just a simple thing. It's like you got to look holistically at your whole project and like the life cycle of it. Because I take pride in what I build, and I want what I build to last as long as possible. And a lot goes into that. Because also, I think that's the biggest challenge for me about working outdoors is that the outdoor environment is a very challenging environment. And so what I was getting at is it's really frustrating sometimes when I have to work under designers where the designer doesn't fully understand the challenges, and that they'll specify some material or they'll specify some design detail that's just not going to, and lots of times we can have conversations. Sometimes it's like the client just has their heart set on some kind of thing and we have to work around it and find ways to make it. But also, since like the outdoor space, it's one of those things, it's not really permanent. It's not like it's not necessarily a life safety issue. It's a longevity issue.
Right. Interesting distinction. Yeah.
Yeah. There's not really a code book to go to. It's more of like, these are just things I've learned, like I've had to tear out my own stuff that's rotted away in like 5 or 6 months. I better go back.
Right.
Oh, you know what? This is now a spongy mess.
Oh, right. Figured that out. Interesting.
So yeah, a lot of it comes down to just understanding the exterior environment here. And it's very hyper local too, it's like what works a couple hundred miles away might not work here. And also too, it's like sometimes the way the row houses are, there's like north facing rows and south facing rows. And so a backyard, like if I'm in a backyard that's on a north facing house, that means it's a south facing backyard. It gets a ton of light. The deck gets a lot of sun. In that case, I have to worry about all the woodwork is going to have UV damage. Where a deck right across from it that's on the north side of a building, where the front of that building gets sun, that deck will have a lot of mildew issues, because it'll never see sun. And so kind of understand that like a deck that's 100 feet away from another deck, one's going to be in full sun and get dried out every day. Another one's never going to see sun, and it's going to be slippery and mildewy. Kind of just understanding those distinctions, I think, are important.
So interesting. Well, Adam, fantastic, man. I really appreciate you sharing all your wisdom here. If folks are in the Brooklyn area and they're looking for some help with their urban environment, their exterior environment behind their house, beautiful like landscape kind of architecture, design, build, what are some of the best ways to get in touch with you?
My website is urbanexteriors.nyc. My phone number is probably the best, just because if you just call me, my phone number is 646-673-10 3838. Just call me, just because I usually answer it. I get spam calls all day long, so I usually but I always answer them and yell at them and whatever. I always pick up my phone. But
Yeah,
if
fantastic.
you email me, it might take some time to get a response back because I'm always in the field every day.
Okay, great. Well, fantastic. Get in touch with Adam at 646-673-3838 or urbanexteriors.nyc. Fantastic. Adam, thanks so much for coming on the show today and explaining the story of the company.
Yeah, thank you.